Good morning again. All right, I'm back for part 2 of this post-travel motion session using Pilates. So, as you might have already heard, it's March Matness, which is a celebration of the Pilates work. It is a media campaign. I hope that you see some new things that just maybe pique your interest, or even some creative takes on old favorites, right? It's wonderful to come into the Pilates studio and explore what is different about this way of learning how to use your body. Really, it's just so cool. Okay, so in the first segment, we did a lying sequence with Pilates mat work, not full exercises, but we're unkinking from traveling. So the emphasis is less on technically drilling the exercises and more on giving the body some space so that we can have our full skill set later in the day. I'm getting ready for a full teaching day. Okay, so next I'm going to have you come up to seated. So I'm choosing in the studio. This is a little high for me, but you can see it better on camera. My knee is it would be preferable to have your knee basically at the same height of your hip, but I'm going to work with this because when is it ideal in home circumstances? Always. Ideal is great, but you don't always have ideal circumstances. So learning to adapt is also a fantastic skill. So as you can see, my knee is a little bit higher in your hip, which is going to give me a greater challenge to create length in my spine as well as in my hip joints, but there we go. Okay, on the floor, I have a towel spread underneath my feet. Okay, I'll tip this down for a real quick second so you can see that. And the towel, there we go. The towel is one of my favorite ways to get circulation and blood in parts of my body that tend to feel really restricted and tight. So I'm going to go tall spine, eyes looking outwards from the windows in front, but I am going to really listen to my base. I'm going to take a few breaths. And I want to remember that my low abdominal work here is more of an awareness of it being dynamic and internal actions that create stability. So post-travel, I always feel like there's a lot in me that needs to come out. So I just have to soften. For me, I have to find my abdominals, but listen how to really get on top of my sits bones, not in front of my sit bones, because I tend to perch too far forward and then overactivate some of the muscles behind me at the expense of, right, some others. So reaching long in your toes, coming up on tall the sits bones, find a comfortable spine that doesn't feel forced or excessive. Flex the ankles, expand the whole sole of the foot. Now, once your foot is onto the towel, instead of having your weight in your heel or your toes, distribute your weight through the entire surface area of your foot. Feel how your knees can go forward. And really, if you wanted to move your legs any which way direction that you wanted to, you could. Okay, we're going to gather up the full underside of the foot. Feels like nice doming everything up. And then we're going to lift, expand, find that weight distribution, and then gather again. Lift, expand, gather again. Okay, so kind of a couple tips. I am keeping my feet a little bit in front of my knee angle as I'm doing this because my knee is higher than my hip. So if you are on a chair that kind of makes you sit farther down and behind, like a lot of, oh my gosh, how many different furnitures and sitting chairs should we have in cars? That's again very, very typical. So just adjust the angle. Okay. Now I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to go from my nice high lifted arch and I'm going to expand and stretch. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go 8 again. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Good. Again, tip, by using my palms on my knees because I'm helping my knee remember to go forward energetically and with motion. Okay, that helps me remember that I can kind of basically avoid extra compression around my front hip. Awesome. All right, little kind of wiggle through the legs. I'm going to bring your camera up. Do. Okay. So this sequence is taken from Pilates Short Box. Again, it's not the full ideal version, but enough to get going. Reach through your toes and knees forward. Find your start position. Place your hands beside you. Lift through your spine. Use your abdominal connection and create healthy length in your back. Start with rolling your sits bones and pubic bone, sits bones under, pubic bone up. Move back in space. Roll through, come up again. So we practice this in our floor work, the path of motion. It's a lot like a half roll back with straight finish, isn't it? So getting my round, I want to go ahead and do the initial rolling around my pelvis, but I want to teach my pelvis how to connect that. So when I curve over my waist, I can feel my back get wider. So I'm going to do a couple like that. I'm holding on with my hands. Again, watch for neck and shoulders. It's hard. Not hard, it's not impossible. It just takes a lot of practice to keep your head balanced as you're going and your shoulder connect. Opening up my back. Find your upright pelvis from the sits bones up and really extend your full column of your glorious spine up. Take a full breath with me. Remember that down is healthy, so push down into the heels and push down against the sits bones, and then lengthen your abdominals up. Create the sides of the body long and really picture that your full spinal column is a lovely piece of architecture with lots of space all through to the tip top of the head. Reaching in space back, coming up. Again, reaching in space. Good. So initiation in those deep low abdominals. But now I need to keep my spine lifted, which is not a function of one part of me, right? It's the whole body. Coming up, put your weight on one foot, press into that same hip. And then go over the side as if you're making one side of the waist a little longer. Coming up through center. Put your weight on the foot. Find that same hip. And lengthen. Good. So a little bit of a lateral flexion or a lateral curve. I think it's really fine to shift your weight more in the pelvis here because, again, we're kind of getting ready for our day. So you'll notice if you push away with the bottom foot, you'll notice that you go farther and have more to work with. Okay, coming up tall, place your hands just around the front of the ribs, roll your shoulders up and back. Find that tall column from internally, right? Internally from your body, climbing all the way up through your eyes. And then take your nice rotation of your middle. Good. I'm going to do the same thing with legs a little wider. As you turn to one side, distribute your body's weight through the foot and the hip you're going to. And come back centered. It's a little bit more range, right? So taking your center around. Distribute your weight through your hip and your sits bone. Good. And that's where I can really feel the effects of traveling. Good. Look for a smooth glide. Even if it's in your mind that you tell yourself that's possible, that's where all of the good changes start. All right, come back into center. Put your box to the side. We're going to get on our front body for just a moment because then we're going to come up and stand. Okay, so using your floor mat, take your body to a swan preparation. Let's see, let's try that. Better. Stack your hands and start with your feet hip width apart. Breathe into your belly generously. See if you can kind of pull the legs away from the low abdominals. We don't have to separate ourselves into pieces and parts, but again, space and finding some healthy movement and circulation and blood through our body. So finding a nice sense about where the sits bones would be, lifting into the low abdominals, rotating the hips enough so the sits bones feel like they don't go up to the ceiling. They definitely are facing the feet. And then I need to kind of counter turn the pelvis towards the mat so that I can prevent my back from bending in places that's unhealthy. Awesome. Lift the chest just a little bit. And then going through just a couple swans. Again, it's warming up, reaching end to end. Sliding up onto the forearms for your classic Sphinx. Being in your center, but having the capacity to soften certain parts of your body. So around the area where I'd say it's the hip joint, where the break of the hip would be, looking for a really nice feeling of room and maybe a little imaginary spacer in your mind. Rotating under the sits bones, and the pubic bone can be light here. The pubic bone doesn't have to push so down. It's a little better on my hips if I make the pubic bone just a little lighter because then I can reach through the crown of my head. Head and neck rolls. Loosely, small range of motion. Lowering in your body again. Excellent. Lower down, turn through your body. Go on your side for a second. Maybe curl into a nice little ball. And then roll your way through to seated. Okay. So, because it's not a full class, but there's segments of movement here, we're going to finish up on our feet and stand up. All right. So the first thing I want you to kind of do is just connect what you did. Right? We want to just put our body up on our own feet. Okay. So I'm going to basically go long toes in front of my ankles. I'm going to find that weight distribution through my foot on the floor, but I want to stand through my center, upwards, outwards, downwards, aroundwards, kind of letting my imagination go through those directions. So fun. Simple knee releases. Reach your knees forward, stretch tall, knees forward, stretch tall, knees forward, stretch tall, knees forward, stretch tall. Awesome. Now I'm just going to have my knees releasing. I'm relaxing my knee forward and I'm just pushing into the floor with my feet and toes. I'm going to pretend that I have springs in my core, in my spine. It's not really a pretend. We can definitely look at the body that way. And I also have springs in both my hips. And that goes all the way through my leg muscles onto my heels. And if you find yourself going, you can tell I want to jump, right? I really want to do jumping jacks, so that's where we're going to go. But if you find yourself going, I can't do those things, it really hurts this. May we suggest, as my lovely teacher Sherry shared this weekend, the power of the word yet. If you find something physically that you know you remember being able to do, maybe in past years, sometimes it's a matter of learning how to put it together. Okay, so today's a great day to look at some stuff and be like, oh, yeah, so I'm just letting my little bounce start to happen. Good. I love patterns so much as an artist. So I'm just going to do a really light little kind of boing again. I am not trying to make it, perfect. I'm trying to make my legs and arms feel kind of really loose and springy. And I'm just going to switch my feet forward and back and let my ribs twist again. Good. And now I'm going to put that all together. Again, nice and boingy. I'm going to do jumping jacks. Nine, 10. Excellent. All right, shake out your legs. Good. So, thanks for moving with me. Right? I hope to see you next time. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate. Remember when you're moving to really honor where your body is today. So obviously you'll see things that are not for everybody every single day. But that's one of the gifts that Pilates has, is that the workout is really meant to bring you to a place of health. So we have to start where we are right now. Okay? Thanks. Let us know if you have any questions.